Okay, great. And then I believe we have Norma on the line. So Norma, if you could get us started with the language access announcement.
Sure. Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Norma, voy a ser la intérprete para la reunión esta tarde. Si necesita la reunión interpretada al español, en unos segundos va a haber el canal de español, escojan ese canal. Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Norma.
You're
And
welcome.
then we'll go ahead and turn on the interpretation feature as well. So that's that little globe at the bottom of your screen. Just click whether you want the English room or the Spanish room for tonight's meeting. And then with that, I'll go ahead and get us started with roll calls. So I'll just go in order and then just let me know if you're here.
Question,
Yes.
will we be able to see our CSC members on video?
Yeah, if they share their video.
Okay, but will we be able to see their names at all? So we
Uh,
don't know who's on video right now, right?
Right now, we have, it's just showing folks if they have their video turned on. But if you have questions about anybody, I think Carissa could find out.
Yeah.
So we won't see names from this angle?
No, not
Okay.
from this angle.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, while Ramona tinkers with that, I'll go ahead and do roll call, and then hopefully that'll give folks a better sense of who's in the room and online right now. So just let me know if you're present. So Nancy Aguirre, I'm looking at you. So
Present.
Alfredo. Hi. Ianad Burrell.
Here.
Thank you, Ianad. Marisol. I see you.
Presente.
down there. Thank you. Lucia Costello. Absent. Sandra Castaneda. I believe she is absent. Suzanne Coffey.
Here.
Okay. And then, Michelle Gomez Garcia. Absent. Kevin Morano Hernandez. Absent. Lisbeth Ibarra. Present. Hello. Hakeem Johnson.
Here.
Thank you. Michael Kent. Absent. Jeffrey Kilbreth. Dr. Amatoso.
Present.
Jessica Range.
Here.
Thank you. Okay, Simran Sandhu. Dave Severy.
Present.
Thank you. Heidi Swillinger.
Present.
Thank you. Franklin Ungo.
Right here.
Hello. And last but not least, BK White.
Here.
Okay, and with that, we are done with roll call and we have a quorum as well. So just a few other housekeeping things for tonight's meeting, since it's a little different and we're hybrid and in person. We won't be doing raise hands for voting today. We will be utilizing the roll call. So I'll just go through as normal, call out everyone's name and let me know what your vote is. And then also for all of the people that are in person today, before you start speaking, please just say your name so that the folks that are online know who's talking. And then lastly, this room has mics placed all around, so there's no need to get up and move around as you speak. It will catch your voice. And so with that being said, just be mindful of any side conversations that might happen, as we'll probably hear it in the background. Hot mic. Yes. And with that, that is the end of my opening. I'll ask Ramona to screen share our slides, and then I'm going to pass it over to Dr. Amatoso.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our 34th Path to Clean Air Community Steering Committee meeting. It's a pleasure to be here with everyone, and thanks for those joining virtually. And also thanks to our community, those that attended virtually as well, and the industry staff. Excited to be here to kind of start the next phase, which we've been working on the last 3 years. And want to acknowledge a lot of work that's gone to get us to this point, and also the leadership and commitment it's taken to get here. So I think it's important before we kind of start with the process to really acknowledge those that helped us get to this point. And so I think it's important to recognize at the Clean Air co-chairs, Alfredo Angulo and Yuna Burrell, for the work and leadership this past 3 years. It's really appreciated. And thank you for all you've done. And as a show of appreciation, we're also going to give you a certificate of gratitude. So we have up here in person for Alfredo Angulo.
Yeah. Can I say something about that too?
Yes.
Just to, I just wanted to acknowledge, I thought our action at the board.
Say, this is John.
Oh, for the owl, okay. I'm John Joya, I live in Richmond and on the Air District and Board of Supervisors. I want to say that when the board approved the Path to Clean Air plan, while that was a nice big event, it was really all of your work in the many months and over a year leading up to that adoption that really, I think, needs to be celebrated, not just a vote. Because all of your hard work and having both of you as co-chairs, I know, Yanad, you're out there on Zoom, right? And Alfredo, and all of you, but really being led by two really strong co-chairs of bringing you to this point. I mean, I had a chance to look at other AB 617 plans when I was on the California Air Resources Board. I got to participate in hearings around the state, a plan in the Central Valley, one in San Diego, LA. And I have to say, I don't want to compare, but I thought this plan was really the most comprehensive, detailed plan of any of the ones I've seen. And I think it speaks to just the hard work, the knowledge, the commitment, the passion that all of you put into this. And having two strong co-chairs really lead this effort really makes a difference. And I wanted to acknowledge that, be here as well, and be here for the first part of the meeting. And we have just some certificates to present. But I think the real honor is seeing what we all do with the work that you really have already done, right? That's not just a piece of paper, but it's the commitment to follow through and have this plan not sit on a shelf, but be the beginning of a path, as you call it. It's not the end of a path. So thank you, Yanad, Alfredo, and all of you.
Yes.
Yanad will do it virtually, right?
Yes, and then Ina also has her hand up, so we can.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Omatoso. Thank you, Supervisor Joya. Thank you so much. It's been so much fun, a super pleasure. And just know I may be busting through the doors at 7:59 over there. I just had to switch up something, so hopefully I'll be able to wave to everyone, but thank you so much.
Okay. You're coming up? Okay, great. Okay, come on up. All right. So my nice clothes on. No. All right. Oh, so all You're in the middle.
Appreciate
There you go. Okay, all right.
Nancy's our new co-lead as well. Can you move the chair?
Anybody can do this.
Thank you.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, 60, 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, 66, 67, 68, 69, 70, 71, 72, 73, 74, 75, 76, 77, 78, 79, 80, 81, 82, 83, 84, 85, 86, 87, 88, 89, 90, 91, 92, 93, 94, 95, 96, 97, 98, 99, 100, 101, 102, 103, 104, 105, 106, 107, 108, 109, 110, 111, 112, 113, 114, 115, 116, 117
Thank you. These are yours.
We've only done incredible work because all of you are incredible people. This is the result of a lot of hard work from all of you. I think, like, your point, Supervisor Joya, like, this is one of the most like detailed, concrete plans that have been developed, is because y'all really pushed for us to not only go through the process of writing a plan, but actually do it in a way that is effective and is pushing the needle of what we can do as an agency, what we can do as truly, you know, as a government that cares for people. I think this plan is a testament to how much all of you care about your community that we're all a part of. So I think all of you should be really proud of what we have in front of us. Thank you.
Now the real work starts.
That's up to you.
All of us, yes.
Thank you very much, Alfredo and Yonat. We really appreciate all your leadership. Could we go over the agenda for today?
Yeah, so,
Excuse me.
oh, in terms of the screen, what is this union thing?
Oh, that's DK White.
That's BK. It's his image of his
Oh,
Zoom.
but there's no BK. Okay, so I couldn't tell who that was or what it was or.
Yeah, that's me. Always.
All right. Yeah, so we're gonna start off, we did the welcome and also go over the agenda. So tonight, we're gonna approve the meeting minutes from March 25th. And then we're gonna have an update on Chevron 6.5 settlement and flaring actions. Both presentation by Rules and Development and also a flare immunization plan review and how it ties to kind of the strategies we wrote on the fuel refinery. And then we'll have a short 5-minute break. And then after that, we're gonna do some team building exercise. We felt like as we move into this next phase of the work, it's important we kind of rechannel, kind of refocus how we wanna run our meetings and how we wanna do this work as a group and also engage our community as well, as this will be somewhat different work we're doing now compared to the first phase of drafting the plan. And so we wanted to use some time to sit down together as a group and also those virtually to go over and come up with ideas on how we can do that together. So there will be a team building exercises covering 3 main issues. One, how do we envision our monthly meetings being like? And how do we want to communicate both within the CSC and also engaging with our community as well. Afterwards, we're gonna have a follow-up on the fuel refining ad hoc in terms of a letter to Chevron based on the comments during the draft PTSA. And then we're also gonna do a quick wrap up of the community engagement and outreach committee work, followed with the environmental justice updates and next steps in terms of meeting details and any other public comments. So just a quick reminder to folks, to everyone, that we wanna make sure, especially with the hybrid, we wanna make sure everybody's voice is heard. So please raise your hand to speak, even if you're here in person, so we can acknowledge that and say your name. So especially those on Zoom who can't really see who is who. And so we have to make sure we're speaking one at a time. The mic is on. So we want to make sure only one person is talking at a time so we can hear everyone, so no side conversations. And those on Zoom, please mute your microphone unless you're talking so that we don't have background noise. And please be patient and flexible. You know, we're working with a hybrid setup. So if things go wrong, so give us time to troubleshoot. And of course, if you have any questions and you're doing it from Zoom, please raise up your hands or use the hand feature so that we can try and address your questions. And so in terms of a general decor, just remember that, you know, one mic, one voice. So if someone, you know, is speaking, we'll just have to politely, respectfully let them finish what they're saying. also want to make sure we're being open to different points of view. I like to say we need everyone's voice to be heard, even if we disagree with their voices. And the expectation is that we should review the materials, before each meeting so that we can have a much rich and robust conversation together. And take care of yourself. Self-care is important. So if you need to step away for a few minutes, do so. We understand and feel it's important. And as much as possible, we'll try and involve everyone. So sometimes even if people don't raise their hands, we might prompt or ask if they would like to provide some comments or suggestions based on what we're discussing, just to make sure we're capturing everyone's ideas and their voice as well. And so we'll continue our usual meeting procedures in terms of taking roll call to make sure we have quorum to begin with. And we'll also make sure we have public comments before we take any actions at all. And any CSC member can make a motion for an action which is seconded by another member before we do a roll call vote. And the co-leads are joining. So at the moment, the idea for the co-leads is to kind of rotate who is facilitating our meetings. That's our current plan. So we're introducing kind of meeting goals so that we have a good idea of what it is we're trying to accomplish each time we get together for committee meeting. So one is to approve the minutes of the last meeting from March. The second is to kind of learn more about the Chevron 6.5 settlement and clearing actions and how that pertains to the strategies and actions we have in our plan. And then the third is kind of the team building, which is, I think, a huge part of it to help us envision how we want to do things going forward. And then the fourth is the letter in response to Chevron from the fuel refining ad hoc. And then we're going to have a brief overview of the community engagement and outreach committee's work as they closed last month. And then I'll pass it on to Dr. Simon. Review of where we are today.
We're getting up and standing in front of rooms. I haven't gotten to do this in so long. It's so nice to see you in person. Meeting some people for the first time in 3 dimensions. It's so exciting. So this is our where we are slide that we look at, and here we are in May. Woo! And the plan was adopted by the Baffin Air District Board, which is we've already acknowledged is a huge success. Where are we moving? We're moving into implementation, and the leads are thinking with the Air District staff about how we're starting to get into implementation, and we're going to bring that back to you in June. So get ready for Orange. We'll probably rebuild this for all Orange, all now. And then just to let you know that we'll be transmitting the plan to the California Air Resources Board, and we're working with Brian Moore, who some of you may have seen on screen, to get the plan to them probably at the end of the month, beginning of June, and then they'll go through their process. They have 60 days to approve. So we're just doing some final tidying and we'll get them the plan. So maybe August, we'll let you know when we hear from Brian. And also, I think there was some interest in bringing carb. We have a new carb rack. I think her name is Jennifer. That could be wrong, so don't quote me. Get Brian and maybe Jennifer to come and talk to you all about how they're going to work through implementation with us. And you can ask them any questions about their process of getting their executive officer to sign off on the plan. So we've been using this diagram. If you are a creative mind and you think that we should do something different, let me know and we can make something different looking. Because as we move into Orange, we have a lot of opportunity to build out a new whole picture. So, you know, I just like being in front of the room waving my arms around. So thanks for letting me come up and entertain you for us.
Thank you.
Excited. Hybrid makes me very energized.
Thank you very much. So next is approval of meeting minutes from the March 25th meeting. Do CSC members have any revisions or edits to make to it? Any hands virtually?
I don't see any hands virtually.
Okay. We have a motion to approve the meeting minutes for March 24th. Oh,
We'll
sorry.
go to the next slide and then see if there's any
Public comment.
members of the public that have any comments on the meeting minutes. I don't see any hands for public comment either. So now we can do
Oh.
the motion.
Okay. So I'll need a CSC member to make a motion for us to approve the minutes of the March 24th.
I'll make a motion. Jeff,
Suzanne Coffey, I'll second.
Thank you. And Carissa, could we take a roll call?
Yes, of course. So again, no raised hands for the voting, just holler out yes or no. Oh, and then one quick note, so these mics around the room are apparently so sensitive that it is catching the paper rustling sound. So just wanted to let folks know just to be a little mindful when you're turning the pages on your paper because the mics can hear that. Okay, I will get started with roll call. Nancy Aguirre,
Yes.
Alfredo,
Yes.
Yana Burrell,
Yes.
you, Marisol Cantu,
Yes.
okay, Lucia Costello,
Yes.
thank you. Suzanne Coffey,
Yes.
Michelle Gomez Garcia,
Yes.
Kevin Rano Hernandez, Elizabeth Ibarra,
Yes.
Jeffrey Kilbrick,
yes.
Dr. Omatoso,
Yes.
Jessica Range,
Yes.
Simran Sandhu, Dave Severy,
Yes.
Heidi Swillinger,
Yes.
thank you. Okay, and then Franklin Ugo.
Yes.
Thank you. And with that, the minutes are approved. And I will pass it back to you, Dr. Lucas.
So our presentation is updates on the Chevron 6.5 settlement and flaring actions by the rules and development staff. So it'll be presented by Danny Fong and Ed Giacomotti. And afterwards, Laura Caquette will kind of give a more overview of how it pertains to our current plan.
Hey.
So, good evening, everyone. My name's Ed Giacometti. I'm a manager with the Compliance and Enforcement Division. I'm going to slide over here so everybody can see me. I don't like to talk. So staff today is going to, Laura and Danny are going to present, as mentioned by Dr. Amatoso, is going to present on the 6.5 settlement and flaring actions. So I believe Danny is online with us, so I'm going to pass it to Danny to go ahead and start the presentation.
Everyone, my name is Danny and I'm a specialist in the enforcement division. As mentioned, this presentation provides updates regarding the recent Chevron Rule 6.5 settlement and current Air District efforts to reduce refinery flaring. So this slide provides a summary of the recent Rule 6.5 settlement agreement between Chevron and the Air District. The violations mentioned on the slide are violations that were agreed to be settled as part of the settlement agreement. Chevron specifically had a total of 670 violations that were not associated with Rule 6.5 settled as part of this settlement agreement. And all of these violations occurred on or before June 30th of 2023. These violations were issued for reasons as emissions exceedances, public nuisances, and administrative violations. Of these 670 violations, 222 of them were related to flaring. And the violations related to flaring were issued for reasons such as failure to examples, visible emissions violation, and low vent gas BTU content, which is a violation of federal requirements. These flaring violations should be addressed by the compliance that are laid out in the settlement agreement, and we'll discuss this further in the next slide. So as part of the 6.5 settlement agreement, Chevron must firstly install automated flare monitoring and flare management systems on its flares. Installation of these systems will allow Chevron to monitor flare gas and optimize vent gas combustion at its flares and reduce visible. Secondly, Chevron is required to conduct annual operator training. Operator error is occasionally cited as a cost, which is a violation of their flare minimization plan, or FMP. The settlement agreement requires Chevron to implement an operator training plan to ensure that operators are aware of the refinery's flare minimization procedures. Additionally, Chevron must evaluate past flaring events to determine their root causes and contributing factors, and recommend potential projects to minimize or prevent recurrence of these precursors to flaring. To increase transparency regarding flaring events, Chevron must develop and publish a public website that can information on flaring. Partner with communicate and meet with our.
Can you make it clearer?
Tell him that was
Yeah.
very difficult.
Yeah, so Danny, I think there may be an issue with your mic. We can somewhat hear you okay in person, and then online, I think is also having some issues as well.
Okay. Let me put.
Have you tried muting us in here too? Because it might be like switching back and forth between.
Online, they're also having trouble hearing him though. So
Yeah, I'm just wondering if like it's
Probably
picking
yeah.
up sound
Or mic.
and like having that be the main one.
we can try.
Hello, hello.
Danny, we're gonna mute our mic here and then just have you speak and see if that works a little bit better.
Okay, no problem. Let me I'll start again from the beginning of the slide and see if
That sounds better. Just
That's better?
FYI. Thank you. Yeah.
okay, so should I start from the previous slide, or did you want me to, is this slide okay? Okay, I'll just start from this slide. So as part of the 6.5 settlement agreement, Chevron must firstly install automated flare monitoring and flare gas management systems on its flares. Installation of these systems will allow Chevron to monitor flare gas and to optimize vent gas combustion at its flares, and also reduce visible emissions. Secondly, Chevron is required to conduct annual operator training. Operator error is occasionally cited as a cause of refinery flaring, which is a violation of their flare minimization plan, or FMP. The settlement agreement requires Chevron to implement an operator training plan to ensure that operators are aware of the refinery's flare minimization procedure. Additionally, Chevron must evaluate past flaring events to determine their root causes and contributing factors, and also recommend potential projects to minimize or prevent recurrence of these precursors to flaring. To increase transparency regarding flaring events, Chevron must develop and publish a public website that contains information about Chevron flaring events. And lastly, Chevron must partner with a community-based organization to develop a community action plan and to meet with Richmond community members to discuss recent flaring events, as well as NOVs issued to Chevron and flaring minimization actions being taken by Chevron. Next slide, please. So now I will move on to provide an overview of the Air District actions being taken to reduce refinery flaring. Our regulatory approach to refinery flares involves the enforcement of Air District regulations, or rules rather, 1211 and 1212. Rule 1211 requires refineries to provide monthly flaring reports to the Air District and to conduct vent gas sampling if they exceed a certain flow rate threshold. Alternatively, refineries may use continuous analyzers to monitor the vent gas. Rule 1212 requires refineries to notify the Air District of flaring events that exceed set emissions thresholds, and refineries must submit a flaring causal report for each notified flaring event to explain the primary cause and contributing factors that led to that flaring event, as well as prevention measures that were considered or implemented to prevent flaring recurrence. Rule 1212 also requires refineries to submit a flare minimization plan, or FMP, which we previously touched on, annually to the air district, which are reviewed for approvability. FMPs include information such as planned installation of equipment or implementation of processes to reduce flaring, and descriptions and evaluations of current and proposed flaring prevention measures. Flaring is prohibited unless it follows an approved FMP, and we'll discuss FMP requirements in the coming slide. Next slide, please. So as mentioned, the Air District Rule 1212 requires refineries to submit FMP updates annually. And the purpose of a refinery's FMP is to reduce flaring emissions by reducing flaring frequency and magnitude. Annual FMP updates ensure that refineries are continuously reviewing existing processes and also making improvements where necessary to minimize flaring. Once reviewed, all FMPs are posted onto the Air District's website for a 30-day public comment period. And FMPs are reviewed by Air District staff for technical accuracy and also to ensure that illegitimate reasons for flaring, such as operator error and poor maintenance, are not included in the FMP. Our staff cross-references past flaring causal reports, flare monitoring data, and inspection records with the submitted FMPs to verify that information that is included in each FMP is accurate and up to date. Next slide, please. So the table on this slide provides an update on the status of Chevron's 2023 FMP review. Chevron submitted their 2023 FMP on time to the Air District on September 19th of 2023. And the deadline for refineries to submit their 2023 FMPs was October 1st of 2023. All 2023 FMPs were posted for public comment in early March of 2024, and the public comment period closed a month later in April 2024. The Air District is actually currently reviewing Chevron's 2023 FMP for approvability, and we actually have until the end of this week to either approve or disapprove their FMP. And I believe the next slide is will be Laura.
Okay, great. So now our room is unmuted and we do have a couple of hands, so we can take the in-person hands first and then move to, there is a hand from the public side as well.
Do you want to finish the presentation?
Yeah, so we're gonna finish the presentation and then open it up.
Okay, we can hold on questions then.
Okay, yeah, I just have a couple of slides. Thanks, Danny. So as I'm sure everyone is well aware, flaring is a big piece of the fuel refining strategies that were developed for this plan. So this slide is a quick overview of the main flaring actions that are in the plan. And those include looking at the industrial safety ordinance, improving communications and data, and undertaking rule development, as well as building collaborative relationships, compliance enforcement and legal actions, and monitoring and reporting. So this slide, this list right here can serve as a reference for what the action numbers cover. So I'm going over them kind of quickly right now, but on the next slide, we have a comparison of these actions. So you can see where they intersect with both the settlement agreement, the flare minimization plan review, and other flaring related efforts. So next slide, please. Well, my eyes are still good enough to read from here. We looked at the settlement agreement and where it intersected with the Path to Clean Air actions. So there's a couple of topics that I put together in this table. And then you can see where that also overlaps with the main rule development action in strategy 2, which is FR 2.6, and then some additional efforts that are identified as well. So the first here is about flaring minimization and root cause analyses. So you can see there are a couple of actions that overlap there in the Path to Clean Air Plan, with the flare prevention and minimization assessments in the settlement agreement. And that's also something that's identified in the rule development action. And again, will be looked at in the flare minimization plan review. The next is about improved communications and transparency of information. And there are a lot of actions that were developed around that. That was pretty important in coming up with actions. And you can see in the settlement agreement, there's some overlap as well. And then with the rule development, there is some reference to getting some data reported and like better information coming from Chevron. And then that is also a topic that would be looked at and is being looked at in the incident response ad hoc of the board of directors. This next one is on collaboration and engagement with the operators. So you heard about the operator training to better prevent flaring events, and then also identified in the rule development action, talking with operators and getting some ideas on where there can be, you know, improvements, talking to people with the boots on the ground and getting those ideas for us. Then there's air and emissions monitoring improvements that are identified as well. And we have 3 different actions in the plan around that. That overlaps with the automated flare monitoring in the settlement agreement, and is also some of the concepts that can be evaluated in the rule development process. And then there might be some implications for any other rules as well from any kind of monitoring related findings. Then the second to last is the flare gas management system. So that automated flare gas management system is required by the settlement agreement. And that's also something that we can look at putting into the rule language and evaluate as concepts. And then lastly was the action around the industrial safety ordinance. So that's action 2.1, and we do cross-reference that in the rule development so that any improvements identified from that process could be brought into the rule development piece as well where applicable. So next slide, please. Okay, so rule development to minimize flaring.
Okay. Welcome back, everyone, from the breakout sessions. We're gonna have a brief report out to the groups. So I'll have the virtual group first and then in-person.
Dave.
Okay. Dave, go ahead.
All right. Can you all hear me? I'll take that as yes. I just see the screen being shared. So yeah, so we had some really great ideas come up around the kind of like how we just overall do engagement, and there were kind of a lot of definitely kind of a call for leadership among the committee, especially I think just using this last agenda item as an example where we're getting a lot of information and sometimes it can be a little bit overwhelming, and it's great. It would be great to have more kind of CSC leadership be able to kind of interpret that and bring that to the committee in a way that's digestible and kind of inspires action. And then there's, you know, a bunch of different calls for like how we maybe do some rotating topics, some, you know, deep dives where needed, and then kind of figure out ways to have a more kind of decentralized way of putting together agenda items and then how we prioritize them. On the kind of communication piece, you know, we talked about how there can be kind of maybe a mix of like more informal ways for the for CSC members to communicate. So, you know, in addition to, you know, email, we could have like a Google group or a WhatsApp thread. People were kind of all over the place on where they were as far as like the length of these monthly meetings. but I think there's kind of, more focus on like having meetings items and agenda items that are really more about taking action and less about kind of presentations or informational topics. But then, yeah, just things that can kind of make the meetings more engaging. So when we're all virtual, like having breakout rooms are really useful. Yeah, and then on the kind of community engagement side, we wanted to highlight that, yeah, there are a lot of residents who feel kind of like they're getting things very much after the fact, and they're kind of brought in and are kind of hearing, comments and are just supposed to be forced to accept those as fact. So figuring out ways to kind of bring people in ahead of time, and we kind of set up like having a website, having more of like an email subscription list, but then also just having some more kind of old school ways of getting in front of people. So we talked about billboards or flyers or mailers, posters, in addition to, us, kind of more online social media presence. So really, yeah, just a mix, but I think, very much we need like kind of a lot of investment in the overall engagement of the community. So that was our group.
For the in-person group, Lucia.
Do we have the papers that we wrote on?
Yeah, they
Are they,
are.
they're all
over
there
there.
stacked? That's fine. Will it catch me if I'm over there?
Yeah,
Yes.
sorry,
Okay.
there was just folks saying there was a lot of feedback, so we didn't have time to. Hold it up for you.
It's okay.
Yeah.
For the first question, dive into the monthly meetings. We agreed that even though the meetings are long, they're important. So we didn't feel like we wanted to shorten them, but that it's important that we take a break because it is kind of a marathon, and towards the end, people kind of lose energy. So as long as we take a break, the timing is okay. That it does seem like agendas being created by co-leads and back mid ahead of time works well, but that it would be great to have a share out of sorts to the larger CSC group so that there's an opportunity for suggestions and ideas to be incorporated. And that there's maybe like a look ahead, like the next 3 months, this is, we're gonna have presentations on this, this, and this, something along those lines. And that deep educational sessions and deep dives were definitely highlighted, and even the possibility of CSC members teaming up with back mid staff and doing joint presentations instead of just back mid staff presenting, so that there's maybe more back and forth. CSC members have more engagement in the knowledge. There's more like knowledge holding within the CSC group, and there's clarity. There's like a kind of maybe like a go-to person on CSC for certain topics. Did I miss anything? People who are in there, good? Keep rolling. Okay, the second question around CSC communication was that it would be really helpful if we had a variety of meeting times, assuming that the implementation phase of work is gonna potentially mimic the writing phase where there were ad hocs or something similar. Having all of the meetings before 5 o'clock really limits some people, and then it's just sort of not possible to be engaged. So as long as there's a variety of meeting times, that would be helpful. And then using an app, something like GroupMe or Slack, could facilitate more informal and casual communication throughout the month, so that there's not this like month where people are not getting any kind of information, so that there's a little bit more cross sharing casually, and then of course we would still have more formal share outs monthly. I think those were the main highlights.
and a CERP CSC like Google Calendar. So we can be more aware of not just this monthly meeting, but public comment periods, really important back mid meetings, really important community, city council meetings, field trips, site visits. And that way it's also incorporated into our life outside of just this one monthly meeting. I think that's everything. And then how are we creating community? It would be great to have some structure, maybe quarterly events. Laura mentioned that there is actually part of our plan does include 2 meetings a year for Chevron updates to the community.
From the settlement, yeah.
From the settlement. So, you know, making sure that we're cross-referencing what we are writing in our plan with our engagement that we would like to do. That we are being mindful of how we want, high level, how do we want to be engaging community? What is the most important information that we want to share in this phase? Maybe it's going to be different in the next phase. So we need to do a high level strategy around the main points, and similarly what we would like residents to engage with in this phase, and then this phase, and then this phase, so that it's really clear for us and for them what we're communicating and how they can engage. So that's really the most important, like foundational, and then we'd love to just spread it around to a bunch of events that are fun, and field days, barbecues, website. Did I miss anything? Good. Neighborhood councils. Yeah. That's it.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot. Do you have any public comments?
There's no hands from the public comment side.
Thank you, everyone. Yeah, we really wanted to get inputs to help shape kind of how we do things so that everyone feels engaged and involved in what we're doing and in the process itself. So we'll be collating this and then giving the information back to you and kind of advising our next steps.
I believe, Carissa, clarification, there is a Jamboard where as people think of more things, they can add to it, correct? You
Yeah.
sent that out in an email.
Yes, so we'll take all of the feedback that we got in person, add it to the Jamboard, and then we'll resend that out to the full CSC so they can add content.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we're gonna move on to the full refining ad hoc later to Chevron, so I'll pass it on to Sol.
Hi, everybody. Marisol speaking from the fuel refining ad hoc group that has been meeting. So just to go into the purpose of us writing the draft letter that y'all already received in public comment. Most of you have it here already printed. When our plan was released, there were many public comments that came in from our community members, from community-based organizations, from residents, also including industry. And so Chevron wrote a letter. It was an 11-page letter it was included, accessible online, and I believe included in the packet. And what fuel refining, after we had a meeting with Air District staff, we felt that the Air District staff was going to be meeting with the other CBOs like Sunflower Alliance or CBE, and they would be meeting with industry, which would be Chevron. We felt community needed to be a part of that conversation. So it wasn't just Air District to industry, but it was community centered and us bringing our voices into that conversation. And that is, on top of that, we wanted a written response to Chevron. sharing our general concerns with their public comment letter. So high level, that letter can again be found online, but some of the letter included that the Air District, there must be underlining legal authority to conduct actions in the plan, and some of the actions from permitting, emissions, flaring, were out of scope actually for the Air District, although we know that the Air District helped write this and it went through legal. So that was one of the issues, that this was out of scope. They cited in particular, like just transition is out of scope for our AB 617 plan. Another high level issue was that enforcement is not a public process. And we have been talking about, you know, how we can learn more about enforcement, insert our voices, insert the health impacts, have CSW, you know, health and safety reps be part of this conversation. And they felt that enforcement is not a public process. And then finally, there was various aspects of the plan that Chevron just stated were inaccurate about Chevron's Richmond facility, from very detailed like monitoring, emissions. All of it was way too technical for me to understand, and a lot of us, but Air District helped unpack it for us. And so it was around inaccuracy. So with that, we will go to the next slide. The fuel refining group decided to write a letter. So this is the letter broken down into 3 pieces. And the first, I'm not going to read it, but just saying thank you, Chevron, for taking the time to write a public comment. That's important. We need to hear that. Thank you for making that bigger. And also, the second sentence is really just stating, we worked with the legal team, we worked with compliance and enforcement, we worked tirelessly to ensure that it was very accurate. And so they wouldn't have put it forward if it was not accurate. Next slide. And after that, we essentially said that there are refinery activities that have still played a huge role in harming our residents. And this is an environmental injustice that just need to be addressed. And that's what we're trying to do as mandated by AB 617. That we are, as a community, tasked with reducing pollution at the refinery. And we wanted them to know that this is what our plan was centering: reducing pollution, reducing health burdens, reducing emission as well. And the next slide. Thank you. And so it just stated that we will continue to work and that we welcome their cooperation and participation in this process. And that is it. I also just want to shout out Lucia that helped really write this and just bring this as a action to y'all. So this is a letter, it was in your packet. Public comments were already submitted by Chevron. You should have been able to read those. And so now it's time for us to have a discussion. The next slide, I think. Any questions, or if you would like to move this item, you're also welcome to.
I have a question. Go ahead.
Yes, you know.
Oh, thank you. Was the 11-page letter from Chevron in one of our packages?
Yes.
It was. Can you just give me the date? When you get a minute?
Yeah.
So we could go to the next question for now.
Any other committee members? Jeff?
I understand, and I mean, it's fine. I would think we're walking into implementation. I think we should be forward-looking, and I think we should. The letter's tone is pretty good. It's polite. It's not, argumentative or controversial. It's just saying, from where we sit, we did the best we could, and nothing seriously inaccurate about. So I think that that's well handled, and it's not but I think we should shift and maybe not so much shift the focus as end the letter on challenging, asking Chevron to do 3 things to help us all make AB 617 a success for the people of the community we all live in. That kind of thing. And the 3 things that to me are most important is to begin the journey of being real about flaring. And we've talked about that before, but I want to see a bloody profile of the amount of pollution and the different pollutants on November 27th, 28th, and 29th.
So flaring was one, what's the second?
The second is working together to reduce toxics by fixing 1118 to make it practical and effective. And the third would be working with Chevron's flare minimization plan to make it effective and to reduce flaring by a significant amount. We don't need to use a number maybe. Just something that shifts the focus to how can we work together with you, Chevron. We want to work with you, Chevron. We don't want to do this without you. We can't do this without Chevron. We gotta.
Thank you. Point of clarification. So you are listed on the slide as the leader of the questions and discussion. So you don't have to wait for this one.
Welcome.
Suzanne, I saw your hand. Oh, okay, perfect.
I think I came.
Is there, yeah.
Just a couple of things. I noticed initially the date was March 19th. And I think the ad hoc group was trying to bring this forward much earlier, but we've, as a committee, had other things, which is why it's gotten delayed. But I think one question for your district staff is, there's a comment about, we believe there may be minor edits that can be completed, but how does that work considering that it's been approved by the Air District? It is now being recommended to go to the Air Resources Board. So there are edits within the plan.
I thought they were made.
Yeah, so if you remember, the process has gotten, just because of the dates of when we're doing. So if you remember, we brought to you the public comments. I feel like that was in January, the whole package. Then we came back to you in February with the request to make some of the edits and changes to clean up some of the things that were messy, non-substantive cleanups. And then that was in February, you voted for that, and then we brought you the plan back in March. So that's the process. So it's currently final, except for final checks on formatting and anything like misspellings and anything very minor. And it will be complete and hopefully posted either at the end of this month or early June.
Got it. And so within that second paragraph that's in there, so I wanted to call that out. And just, I think the Air District staff had reached out to Chevron prior to this going to the full board and even CEHJ, but hadn't been able to fully meet to go through the technical concerns that were raised. So just want to acknowledge that I think that meeting is probably set for happening very soon. But again, we wish it would have happened before the plan had gone through and gotten approved, because now it's just, it's sort of after the fact, and similar to this letter, right? We're 3 months or 2 months or so beyond when I think the intent of this was going out as well. I just want to make those comments.
Anyone online?
I have another question
Oh,
after.
sorry. I don't see any hands for online CSC discussion.
Sorry, there is now one from Jessica Range.
Yeah, sorry, I just need clarification. So are you saying that the comments from Chevron fall into the bucket of non-substantive edits that were made?
No, that's not what I said. Sorry. The comments, what I did say was we shared the public comments with you. We brought you some of the changes that we wanted to make to the plan that we felt were non-substantive. You directed us to make them. That doesn't mean the comments received during public comment were non-substantive. But the changes that we recommended to you were minor and non-substantive. So I wanted to make that clarification.
Thank you, Jessica. Is there any other is there any other steering committee member online? Ian would like to also add before.
I don't see any other hands.
Thank you, Krista.
Thank you. For clarification, the purpose of this, if you can share the purpose of this being on the table for our response, one. And two, if there were other written comments, did we also respond by letter?
Like Sunflower and CBE.
Or do you mean other organizations or do you mean other Chevron comments?
The request was whether there was written responses. So the written responses were shared with you. Is there a letter sent from the CSC? Not to my knowledge.
No, were there, the letter from Chevron was a letter of comments to AB 617.
Yes.
Were there other letters?
Submitted as public comments?
Yes.
From whom? Anyone?
Period.
There was 30, oh, now please don't quote me. Yes, we had, how many public comments did we have?
In a letter form, like.
Yes.
Yes,
We
okay.
shared that,
Okay.
we went through that and shared that. I think it's important just because, things are, maybe I just don't want to confuse the letter from the fuel refining ad hoc with the public comments, right? So yes, we did receive, I believe over 49 public comments and of those public comments, there was probably a total of over 150 questions that were embedded in those public comments. And we shared that on February 26th. So we shared the summary of public comments and the response that we provided. And we also shared, in addition to that, the public comment emails and comment letters that were redacted.
So I think what I'm trying to understand is the reason for this particular response was chosen as opposed to any other response.
Well, maybe just to be clear, Air District did not choose that response. That I'm gonna hand that over to Monty Sol because this initiative and the letter to respond to Chevron came out of the fuel refining ad hoc, not of Air District staff. As a courtesy to Monty Sol, I reviewed the letter to make sure that the person at Chevron who the letter is being addressed to, that all of that information was accurate, but Air District staff did not edit the content of the fuel refining ad hoc's letter.
Okay, so for the fuel refining ad hoc committee, you chose one of the responses to comment to, but not any of the others. Can you share why?
Yes, and there's other fuel refining folks as well. So we have been focused on the refinery. That's the name of it, the refinery. And so the refinery, Chevron made a 11-page letter that essentially said that our plan was out of scope, that it was inaccurate. And instead of having the Air District simply respond without community voices, we wanted to uplift our community's voices and all of the work that we had put in, the amounts of hours and our collaboration with the Air District as well. And we felt that it was important that we came into the conversation. So it wasn't the Air District
simply talking to the refinery, but it also included community members.
Okay, and I'm sorry, I'll circle back to the first. The goal of this being on the agenda and feedback from us will do what? What's the purpose? We want to do what?
Then we will send that to Chevron. Good questions. So there was some feedback. Two quick things. One is there is a line that should be in past tense around there may be, we believe there may be minor edits that can be made accordingly to strengthen the plan. And I think that's a shift that we can put in past tense. There were edits, the Air District made those. Great, so it's past tense, it was finished, so this is more up to date. Also about the date, if we want, we can also update this. This was the letter that the date that we wrote it. It doesn't mean that we can't change the date to make it more relevant for today. So that's another edit that we can make. And then finally, the 3 asks from Jeff. I think that is a minor edit. We wanted it to be short and simple and sweet. And so if there is 3 bullet points and if our CSC empowers the fuel refining to work with Jeff to create very specific short line bullets that could actually be included in this, I think the fuel refining ad hoc would be amendable to having a more specific ask on those 3 things that Jeff mentioned earlier. Those are the main 3 things from Jeff, the date and changing 1 sentence.
Is there any public comments before we?
No, there's no public comment.
Great. I so move for the CSC to send the letter with the updated 5 points, updating the sentence to past tense, updating the date, and working with Jeff to crystallize the 3 main points for Chevron. That's my motion.
Second.
Can we take a roll call vote?
Okay, wait, so I heard, first motion is Dr. Matoso, who's the second?
No, Marisol was the first
Oh,
motion.
you're the first, okay, sorry.
And then Dr. Amatoso was the second.
Okay, so I'll go ahead and get started with a roll call vote. So Nancy Aguirre,
Yes.
okay, Alfredo Angulo Castro,
Absent.
Ianad Burrell,
Abstain.
okay, Marisol Cantu,
Yes.
okay, Lucia Costello,
Yes.
Suzanne Coffey,
Yes.
Michelle Gomez Garcia,
Yes.
I believe Kevin Rona Hernandez is absent, but Kevin. Lisbeth Ibarra,
Yes.
Jeffrey Kilbreth,
Yes.
Dr. Omatoso,
Yes.
Jessica Range,
Yes.
thank you. Simran Sandhu,
Absent.
Dave Severy,
Yes.
thank you. Heidi Swillinger,
Yes.
okay, and then Franklin Ungo.
Yes.
So this item passes, Marisol.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you, Marisol.
Very tight.
Yes, and thank you everyone for your comments. We're gonna pass it on for community engagement and outreach updates. As they wrapped up their process, they want to give you a brief review of the work that was done before the draft plan was approved. So I'll pass it on to Dave.
All right, I will be very quick. I know we're running over time here, so we can go to the next slide. But yeah, I just wanted to take a quick moment to reflect on some of the things that we set out to do. And just at the top, I'll acknowledge all the hard work of my comrade Nancy for all of her support. We kind of like led this charge, kind of going back to you know, the late summer and the fall when we really got this committee going in earnest. But yeah, we use this space really to inform a lot of the material that went out to promote the plan and to promote the public comment period. This was an opportunity to provide space for all members of the CSC to figure out how they want to talk about the plan and how they just communicate among their own networks and to their friends and family. And we made about 15 different presentations to different organizations, some including labor groups, local agencies, governmental groups, neighborhood groups, in the span of about 6 months. And yeah, so we kind of wrapped up, and we feel like we very much achieved a lot of the things we set out to do last May. And then also too, like this, built on a lot of work that was done before that. And I want to acknowledge Kevin Ulp for all of his support. And we also consulted with Roth Alai, and we brought him on to kind of do some initial visioning and kind of kind of strategy setting for how we come up with ways to talk about the work that we do. So want to acknowledge that. And yeah, thank you to Dr. Omotoso, to Suzanne, to Heidi, to Ianad, to really everyone who would come to these Friday morning meetings. It's not the easiest time to swing. So yeah, I'll just pass that to the next slide and have a nice thank you, as well as to all the staff that help support this. So yeah, some of the folks not here as well, including Azbuke and Alicia. So yeah, thanks again. Pass it back to you, Dr. Matoso.
All the work. Are there any comments from CSC? Any comments?
I don't see any raised hands.
Okay. Any public comments?
No.
Okay, thank you. So we'll move on quickly to any environmental justice updates that CSC members would like to share. Yes, so.
Yeah, so tomorrow there's an agenda item at City Council. It's called Polluters Pay. It's a campaign from CBE and APEN. Y'all should look more into it. It's a Chevron refinery tax that they're gonna do the first presentation of a ballot measure in November. So just want people to know that it is being presented. And you should learn more by attending the Richmond City Council meeting. It starts at 6:30, and this is one of the first agenda items.
To piggyback on that, I got the email from Communities for Better Environment. So does anyone want me to forward that email to you? It gives more information about what you're talking about. Lucia?
We could forward it to the whole group.
Yeah, I'll forward it to the whole group. If you're interested, you can jump on.
Any other, no? Online?
I don't see any raised hands online for CSC members or members.
Okay. So let's kind of do our next meeting details. Just a reminder, we're gonna do another hybrid on Monday, June 24th at 5:30 here in the same location. And any case of public comment on non-agenda items?
Before we jump to that, I do just have a quick reminder for the CSC regarding your self-reported stipend hours. Those are due May 31st by 5 p.m. I'll send out a couple reminders over the coming weeks to just submit your hours so we can process the stipend payments for you guys.
Okay, any public comment on non-agenda items?
One comment. I think the last meeting we had previously, there were talks about the community air fund from the Rule 65 settlement.
Yeah.
And I've been made aware of, I think at least a couple of groups that have been trying to come up with ideas on how recommendations on how that can be implemented. And I know that they've identified coming to this body to talk through that. So at some point, there may be some folks reaching out to give their thoughts on how to be inclusive and involved in identifying air emission reduction and exposure reduction projects through that.
Thanks. Any other public comments?
There are no hands from the public.
Okay, then at 8:10, we'll adjourn our meeting. Thank you, everyone.
A successful.